Alright, so to start back, just a couple questions. Now, before we go into the second half, just a couple things that we learned from the first half that I want to point out again. So I'm going by this book, which is a code, because I believe that the white supremacists, they follow a code. I've showed you how they do with the media. Everyone's following the same code. You'll find that anytime they talk to us, they're on code. They follow a code. Black people, when it comes to this system, we have no code. So anytime something happens, we respond in an emotional way because we have no code. Now, they have a code, so they know exactly what to say to us when we do something, exactly what to do. It's called the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept. Very long title. So that's Neely Fuller Jr. The compensatory. You can get it from Amazon, but he has his own website called producejustice.com. So you can go and get it from him. He'd really enjoy that as well. He is actually still alive. He wrote this book in the 60s. Now he started writing it in the 30s. He started writing it, so it took him about 20, 25 years to write it. And he wrote it in the 60s. So this first came out, I think 1968 or 1965 or something. And this is the updated, revised 2016 version. In other words, he wrote a code that we should all follow, but because no one knows about this book, no one's following the code, he has to keep on revising it and updating it. But it's the same code. Yeah? So he's saying we need to follow a code when it comes to this because they follow a code. But no one's following the code, so no one knows about him. And because no one knows about him, he's still alive.
It's important to get the book, but I checked. The audio's on YouTube now, so...
Yeah, he's still on radio now. He goes on radio every week. So you can listen to his audios online. That's where all my audios are coming from. He's on radio, and to this day, like he's been doing this for decades. He's still talking about trying to bring down this system. In other words, he's trying to be a counter-racist as opposed to just being a non-racist. Yeah? And again, in this book, he says there are the only experts when it comes to white supremacy are the white people who practice white supremacy. They are the only experts. So he's not an expert. Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, even though she wrote this amazing book called The ISIS Papers, she's not an expert. Yeah, very, very powerful book. But she's not an expert. I am not an expert. We are not experts. The only experts in this are the people who practice this system intentionally. Yeah. All right, so let's keep on going. So we finished off with racist man and racist woman do not at any time willfully and deliberately do or say anything without the intention of establishing, maintaining, expanding and or refining the practice of racism in all areas of activity. So anything that you see that's happening out there, whether it's racial showcasing, whether it's racial sexual confusion or any of the other ones, you know that they're doing it for a reason to strengthen this system. Whatever they're doing, they follow a code. Doesn't matter what part of what area of activity we're talking about, they always follow a code. Black people, we have no code, so we don't know how to respond every time something like this happens, which is blatant. So we respond by being emotional and, you know, marching or quote unquote rioting or whatever, because we have no code. We're not following a code. Alright, he goes on to say racist man and racist woman by practicing racism are the greatest promoters of falsehood, non-justice and incorrectness among the people of the known universe. Because again, it's the confusion that keeps white supremacy together. Confusion. And they use lies and deceit to keep it together. So their language, using their language to ensure that this system continues. Again, they follow a code. Now, because we all live, again using my analogy, we all live in this fishbowl, we are all affected by it. Black, white, whatever color you are, you're affected by it in some way, shape or form, and you're being taught about the system. So we may not be able to break it down into a book, like Dr. Frances Cress Welsing or Neely Fuller has. We might not be able to put together a lecture like I have. However, we all understand, at a subliminal level at least, the system, that it exists, and that it dominates and mistreats people of color. And if you want some evidence of this, Jane and Lit done an experiment. You saw this.
I I want every white person in this room who would be happy to be treated as this society in general treats our citizens, our black citizens. If you, as a white person, would be happy to receive the same treatment that our black citizens do in this society, please stand. You didn't understand the direction. If you white folks want to be treated the way blacks are in this society, stand. Nobody's standing here. That's not very plainly that you know what's happening. You know you don't want it for you. I want to know why you're so willing to accept it or to allow it to happen for others.
So everyone plays by rules, the code, whether they're conscious of it or not. So everyone, all white people, non-white people, we all play by the rules and follow the code, whether we're conscious of it or not. And again, because we're all fish in a fishbowl, doesn't matter what age we're looking at, we're all being conditioned to play our roles, even from a very young age.
Where are they gone? Yes, you did. You don't know. So who ate them all? Someone come around and ate the cakes. So someone broke into a home and ate Mr. Kipling's Angel Slices. Didn't take the TV, didn't take, you know, some jewellery. They took these cakes.
Look at that face. Look at that. She knows she's on code. Like, oh, I know what to say. I know what to say. Look at that. It's on code. That's not something that she didn't say before or that she hasn't heard before. On code from a very early age. Right? So the way I see it, it's like a safe code. They always use the same code when they're talking to us. And what's a code? A code is like a secret language. Yeah? Used to accomplish a specific thing. It's something that you say or do that works every time, like a safe code. If this safe code to the treasure is 5824, guess what happens when you put in 5824? Opens. It works every time. It's a code. So if you put in 5823, that's close, but it's not going to work because it's not the code. They use the code when it comes to this. Now, again, the only experts are who? The white people who practice white supremacy. So I don't know. All I can see, I don't know what their code is. All I can see is what they're doing and kind of surmise what the code is. But they always have a code when it comes to speaking with us. And we have no code. So we're all over the place. We're all over. And if you don't have a code, or you don't know the code, how are you going to get to the resource? Yeah?
Problem solving.
Listen to what Neely Fuller said.
Procedure for doing that. Questions and answers.
Yes, sir.
Why? Because the logical procedure throughout the entire universe is all problems, without exception, are solved through what process? Questions and answers. So the way you control your emotions is that you immediately go into a question mode. Stay in the question lane. Don't stay away from making statements. Now when you start talking to people about racism and all like that, they say the smartest white people, or the white supremacists rather, are the smartest people on the planet, and someone starts arguing, what you want is conversation control, compensatory conversation control. That's what it's called. So that you don't argue. When you have conversation control, you don't have an argument. What's the best way to avoid an argument? Ask questions.
Ask questions.
And do not help the person with the answer. Just listen for the person's answer, so that the person works themselves through their own question.
That's part of code. When they're talking to us, they stay in question mode. They never make statements with us. They stay in question mode. That's the reason why, again, the easiest way to confuse someone is to make them think that the opposite is true. Anytime you turn on the TV and, you know, it's Channel 4 or ITV and they're talking about race or knife crime or something to do with this system, who's asking the questions? They are. Who are they asking the questions to? The victims of white supremacy. So if you go into Channel 4 and you look at a debate about knife crime, the people asking the questions are the experts. And the people who are answering the questions are the victims. How does that make sense? But that's part of code. Anytime they talk to us, they stay in the question lane. You have to stay in the question lane, because some people think that the greatest way to, control a conversation is to make statements. Put your point across, make statements. The greatest way to control any conversation is to ask questions. Stay in the question lane, like Neely Fuller says. And they understand that, even from a very young age, they understand that we ask you guys questions. You don't ask us questions, right? Now I'm going to show you a clip of a young lady here, and she's going to call this baby a nigger. And usually, when we hear that word, how do black people respond? With emotion, get angry. But the mother of this baby stays on code. Listen to what she says.
Yeah. What that word means. Don't say that, London. What that word means. What that word means.
What?
What does that word mean? Like,
You're a nigger.
What that mean?
He's a nigger.
What does it mean though? Like, what is a nigger? What is a person or what? Like, what is it? How does it make you one? How does it make you? Are you one?
No.
Why? Why aren't you one?
You're taking a video. Is that on Snapchat?
No, it's not.
On your pictures?
Yeah. Why aren't you a nigger?
Cause I'm not.
Why? You said he won. He's a baby. So how is he a nigger if he's a baby? That doesn't even make sense. Like, how can you be that? He was just born.
No, he's not.
He was just not so long ago. I'm saying he's still a baby. So what makes you a nigger? I don't call him that. I'm trying to figure out what makes you that. And how you not one, and you bigger than him. So how?
I don't know.
So how you call somebody something you don't even know what it means? What are you? What are you? If he's a nigger, what are you? Huh? Girl, you crazy. Girl, don't be calling people stuff if you don't even know what it is.
He needs help.
Huh?
I said he needs help.
Who?
Him.
Why he need help?
You're asking too much questions.
You don't understand though. I'm just curious. He's a happy baby. I don't think he needs any help. He don't have no problems.
You guys want to go play at the park? Let's go.
They can't go play with you until you tell me what does a nigger mean. No, London. You can't go with her.
Watch this part. Listen.
No. Oh, I didn't hear that.
Part again, she said to her daughter, "Don't you dare go over there." Yeah. Why? Because she just realized that's a suspected white supremacist there. Yeah. Again, we're all being taught the same thing, right? But from a young age, she's on code. Did you see the way she stayed on code? First of all, she says the word nigger, and then the mother didn't respond emotionally. So she's probably thinking, "Oh, second, you're supposed to get angry right now. That's how you guys usually respond." The mother went straight into question mode. Why is my baby a nigger? What makes my baby a nigger? Are you a nigger? No. And then stayed in question mode, and what happened? Then she started to act fake confused. I don't know. I don't know the answers. Because they get very uncomfortable when we start to ask questions. Why? Because that's how you control the conversation. You control the conversation with questions, not statements. "I'm not a nigger, let me tell you." You don't control the conversation like that. She stayed straight into question mode and just kept on asking questions to the point where, what did the young lady say? "You ask too many questions." That's code. Because guess what? We're not supposed to be asking questions. They ask us questions. And then she started to act fake confused. But that's part of the code as well. Just act dumb. "Oh, I don't know what's going on. I don't know. Why did you call the baby a nigger? I don't know." That's part of their code as well. Part of their code is create the confusion, then act fake confused. So I'm going to call you a nigger, create the confusion, and then I'm going to act fake confused. Yeah.
She also said that he needed help.
He needed help. And then when she asked her why does he need help? You ask too many questions. Yeah? And then at the end, all right, do you guys want to come over here and play away from your mother? You know, come over here so I can influence you. And the mother said, don't you dare. Stay right there. Yeah? Because she was on code. And because black people, we don't follow a code, we would have responded very, very differently to that situation. But this is their code. Create the confusion, then act fake confused. And again, they do it all the time. Science is based off of observation. This is what I've observed because I am not an expert. They are the experts. But what I've observed is that they like to create confusion and then put up their hands and say, hey, sorry, I didn't realize. Like this. Remember? And when this happened, he then went online and said, I didn't know. I didn't even know that Meghan Markle was mixed race. That's what he said. Create confusion and then act fake confused. And because they are all on code, it's not just one of them, not just two of them, they are all on code. All of his friends went straight to code. So watch what his friends say. What? Danny Baker got fired? Again, fake confusion. But he immediately apologized and deleted the tweet. I mean, literally, in the event of mistakenly causing offense, what else can he do? I'm genuinely amazed by that. All of his friends came to his defense. Yeah? You create the confusion, then act fake confused. And again, remember Neely Fuller says, 1, stay in the question lane, and 2, never call a white person a racist. Because you can't prove it in a system of white supremacy. You can suspect anyone of being a racist, but you cannot call them a racist. That's an easy thing for them to get out of. How can you prove I'm a racist? You can't prove I'm a racist. You can't see what's in my heart. I haven't got a racist bone in my body. And you can't prove it. Yeah? So, yes, look at what happened there. I'm going to show you a clip of Afua. They're talking about this, and his friends are, all of his friends are protecting him, saying, oh, I don't think it was racist. And then Afua, unfortunately, none of us are on code. She's like, of course he's a racist. Watch this.
Danny claims he didn't even know Meghan is mixed race. Of course, he should have done. And of course, he shouldn't have done what he did. It was stupid and insensitive. But as a former BBC Director General, I ask, would I have agreed with the decision to sack him if it had happened when I was there? The pressure to remove him would have been intense. But I rather hope that I would have resisted. He did not intend to be racist. I mean, I oddly think if he'd been on the staff of the BBC, as opposed to being a freelance, if he'd been on the staff, they would have had to have a proper investigation. They'd have gone through the whole process. And I suspect he might not have gone. But because someone had a knee-jerk reaction, because they understood the sort of flack they were going to get, I think they got rid of him.
How is he the victim in this scenario? This is a pregnant woman who had to arrange new levels of protection because of the amount of racist abuse she was receiving, which escalated when she announced she was pregnant. She's always had racist abuse, but when she announced her pregnancy, it multiplied because there is so much toxic racism in our society.
If we begin to separate intent from racist actions and cannot see the distinction between racist behaviour and someone being a racist, then I shudder to think the kind of society we're going to end up in, because everybody will be declared racist all the time for microaggressions, which is where the far left are taking us.
It is so exhausting to have to sit here and communicate our daily lived experience. These are the kind of things that happen every day in your life. As a black person in this country, yesterday I was talking to a mixed race girl who tried to kill herself when she finished school because of daily things that made her feel dehumanised. It's regular and it's everywhere. And then what you see is that people like you, Greg, line up to defend your friends and say, I know him, he's a nice guy, it's fine, it's harmless, he didn't mean it. You have no idea how it feels to have someone make a monkey noise at you when you're doing your job. To have someone make a monkey noise at you when you're doing your job.
This is it. We're not on code, so this is how we respond when they talk to us. But they are all on code. You're going to see her get emotional in this one, and just watch their faces, the fake concern. Yeah.
How is he the victim in this scenario? This is a pregnant woman who had to arrange new levels of protection because of the amount of racist abuse she was receiving, which escalated when she announced she was pregnant. Racist abuse. But when she announced her pregnancy, it multiplied because there is so much toxic racism in our society.
Not Danny Baker's fault.
It's not Danny Baker's fault. Is that he did something which was so offensive that when I first saw it, I actually thought it was a prank. I just thought nobody who the BBC gives a platform could be stupid enough to say this and not intend it to be racist. Because
You're calling him a racist.
We could talk about unintended racism and microaggressions. This is none of those. This is the most blatant, clear-cut example of racism. It's that generations of people have recognised this as an overtly racist trope. Within people's lifetimes, black people are still being compared to monkeys and dehumanised regularly. So I'm not interested in him. I'm not interested in him or what happened to him. By the way, he's already done a show which was more successful than his previous shows since he's been sacked. So if you're worried about his career, then I suspect...
No one's worried about his career.
I'm not interested in him. I'm worried about the millions of black people who regularly live with this kind of abuse and then have to be in spaces like this where everybody denies it's a problem. That is something that I could not feel more strongly about, and I'm living it right now in this conversation.
There you go. Yeah? Look at that. Well, you see how they stayed in question mode. Fake concern, and then it's like, well, so you're saying that he should have got sacked?
Yeah.
Question mode. Stay in question mode. But this is part of their code. And certain words that they use as well. Neely Fuller says that they use magical words. They confuse you with dazzling footwork. They're masters of language, so they use certain words and certain phrases. So here's a couple phrases that they use, which is part of their code. I don't see race, you know, I don't see colour, and all these sort of things. Listen to what this lady says here.
It makes me consider racism in places that I never even saw it.
So for example, one of the most recent things is that H&M sweatshirt. I saw this little kid in a sweatshirt, cute little sweatshirt, forget about it, moved on.
This is the black lad modelling a T-shirt
Yeah,
with the expression
but
cheeky little monkey.
Yeah, it's called
clever little monkey.
I know what you're saying is well-meaning,
But why
so that's
is it?
fine. Because do you think, as a white person in a society where the majority of people are white, you have a good understanding of the ways in which race affects people psychologically? Because when you say you don't see racism, Michelle, I wouldn't expect you to see it, if I'm quite honest with you, because it's not your experience. I wouldn't imagine you get othered regularly. I wouldn't imagine that you carry and experience the baggage of being in a country that colonised on a white supremacist ideology other countries for 400 years. You know, and it's very easy to say that if you don't
Do you feel it?
I have experienced that. I've just written a book about the experience, and not as a victim.
How often, Afro?
But as,
Seriously, how often?
As a daily thing. And this is the thing, and I don't want to get not overt racism, but
Got it all on there now.
yes, microaggressions, subtle prejudice that often comes from
She
very
gets
well-meaning
flustered now, and she comes off cold.
And you know, one of
If it's well-intentioned, it's not racism.
So she made a statement there. That was off code.
don't see race. Which is exactly what you're saying, which again, Michelle, very well intentioned. I can see what you're saying. You are distancing yourself from a history where people judged each other based on race and were prejudiced against people because of their race, right? You're distancing yourself from that, saying, I have no part in that.
I don't see anyone as different or unequal. I just see people the same.
That doesn't mean to say that other people don't. Because you
well, there are two things. One, you are
speak for it.
when you say you don't see something, you are blinding yourself to reality. We live in a world where racial injustice is a structural part of our reality. So if you choose not to see it, you are blinding yourself to something that exists.
Let me just correct this.
And secondly, this is important too. Let me just finish my point. Secondly, my heritage as a black person is not something I want you to be blind to. It's part of who I am. So by saying you don't see it, you are blinding yourself to something I see as positive. And when people do that, it makes me question whether they still think it's a negative thing, but it's better not to see.
My sentence is very quick. It's not that when I say I don't see it, I don't feel towards you anything other than what I feel towards you. So when I say I don't see it, I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I'm saying I don't have those thoughts anywhere in my body, and I'm sure people do not either.
That's it. How are you going to prove that that's a racist? She doesn't have that feeling, that she doesn't have a racist bone in her body. So how are you going to prove it? You're going to cut her up and open up her body and study her bones? I don't have a racist bone in my body. We, as victims of white supremacy, we cannot prove that anyone's a racist, even if it's blatant. Yes,
yeah, just to quickly say, I saw after a couple months after she done these, she looked thin, pale, unwell. She looked in herself. She looked. When you expose yourselves to the wolves.
That's exactly it. And we don't know how to talk to them because we're not following a code. So obviously that was a very stressful situation for her.
Right now.
Because she wasn't on code. She didn't know how to talk to them, and then they, like wolves, they were all just coming for her. Yeah? But this is the thing, this is the reason why we can't, even when it's obvious, that Danny Baker thing was obvious. So the obvious thing is to say, he's a racist. That's off code. You don't say that. You just go towards what he did. Did he do that tweet? You just go into question mode and talk about what he did. In other words, talk about this stuff. Don't talk about what the person is, even when it's obvious. Yes, sir.
Sorry, I wanted to say that I feel sometimes that the media uses these things on purpose to get their message out, because they will use the Dove advert or the monkey Asian anything, and people start going mad, and it goes everywhere, it becomes
because they're on code. They understand when they put it out, it's going to create
that's their way of advertising.
Confusion.
Yeah, and we're helping them advertise.
Exactly. Yes, brother.
How are we supposed to read that book? Is it more like a reference?
Yeah.
More of a reference, right?
Yeah. But some people ask me at the break, like, at work they don't know how to talk to white people or suspected racists. This will teach you. Again, they have a code. When they talk to us, they know what to say and do. They say this word, they'll get that response. They say that, they'll get that response. But we don't. So this will help you to talk with them. Yes.
So would it be like in like chapter 4, like his mind, employer talks to you like this?
Yeah, he's got examples like that. Yeah. And then he's got words to use, because they use words with us. We have to use words with them. And again, we can't. There's no way of us proving that someone is a racist. There's no way. Even when it's obvious. Even when it's obvious like this. This is a grime artist, yeah? A white grime artist. Now, his girlfriend went out with some black grime artists. He's a white grime artist. He makes grime. So he's always around black people. And listen to what he said to his white girlfriend who went out with some black grime artists.
Fucking slag, mate. Dirty little ketted up nigger loving whore, yeah? You dirty little ketted up nigger loving whore, yeah? Running up to your little niggers and that, like, look at you with your jaw swinging, look at you, with your little jaw swinging, look at you.
Why'd you ain't swinging, mate?
Look at you with your jaw swinging.
Why'd you ain't swinging, mate?
Cat, look at you, cat, you fucking fiend. You're a bad mum, you fucking fiend, mate.
Right.
You're meant to be a mum, mate, and you're running about to house parties getting ketted up for fucking black niggas, yeah? 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 You dirty little nigger loving cunt. Look at you little waste of space. Fuck off, you tramp. Fucking tramp.
That's his baby mother, yeah? Now, create confusion and then act fake confused. When this came online, he had to defend himself. What did he say? What did he say?
Right, so there's a video going about of me. So I need to address some things quickly, because it's not a nice position to be in, but it needs to be done. First of all, it was me in that video. I hold my hands up. I shouldn't have said the things I said. I'm not a racist. I'm not a racist. I'm not a racist. I'm not a woman beater in the least. I'm sorry for the things I said. Anybody that has seen the video and is offended, I'm sorry. I'm truly sorry. If anyone's watching the video thinking I'm something I'm not, I'm really not a racist. I'm not. I had a weak moment. Everybody's allowed to have weak moments and make mistakes, and that's what I did. I made a mistake, and everybody makes mistakes.
I had a weak moment.
Make mistakes, and that's what I did. I made a mistake, and everybody makes mistakes.
I made a mistake. I'm not a racist. But again, if we're not on code, we'll be like, of course you are. But that's off code. You don't say he's a racist. You talk about what he did and what he said. Like Neely Fuller.
Was that recently?
Yeah.
And so all of the guys in the industry, all his mates in the industry, they were still defending him, right?
Probably. That's another thing that we do, yeah? That's another thing that we do, and that's
Yeah, his name.
I don't know. But that's another thing that the white supremacist does. If one of them come out and it's obvious that they're racist, they'll just get their black friends to say that they're not. I'm not racist. Hey, Jamal, come over here. Jamal, tell them I'm not racist. And then we like, yeah, I've known him my whole life.
That's exactly what happened, bro. Because I heard about that. That's exactly what happened.
But this is how we should. This is code. Now this guy, he looks white, but he's black.
The final frontier.
Listen to how he says we should talk to them when it comes to race.
Race, the final frontier. No matter what channel you watch, no matter what feed you aggregate, it seems like everybody everywhere is talking about race right now. And when everybody everywhere is talking about race, that means sooner or later you're gonna have to tell somebody that they said something that sounded racist. So you need to be ready and have a plan in place for how to approach the inevitable that sounded racist conversation. And I'm going to tell you how to do that. The most important thing that you've got to do is remember the difference between the what they did conversation and the what they are conversation. Those are two totally different conversations, and you need to make sure that you pick the right one. The what they did conversation focuses strictly on the person's words and actions and explaining why what they did and what they said was unacceptable. This is also known as the that thing you said was racist conversation, and that's the conversation that you want to have. The what they are conversation, on the other hand, takes things one step further and uses what they did and what they said to draw conclusions about what kind of person they are. This is also known as the I think you are a racist conversation. This is the conversation you don't want to have, because that conversation takes us away from the facts of what they did and the speculation about their motives and intentions, and those are things you can only guess at, you can't ever prove, and that makes it way too easy for them to derail your whole argument. And that is the part that's crucial to understand. When you say, I think he's a racist, that's not a bad move because you might be wrong. That's a bad move because you might be right. Because if that dude really is racist, you want to make sure you hold him accountable and don't let him off easy. And even though intuitively it feels like the hardest way to hit him is just run up on him and say, I think your ass is racist, when you handle it that way, you're actually letting him off easy, because you're setting up a conversation that's way too simple for him to derail and duck out of. Just think about how this plays out every time a politician or a celebrity gets caught out there. It always starts out as a what they did conversation, but as soon as the celebrity and their defenders get on camera, they start doing judo flips and switching it into a what they are conversation. I have known this person for years, and I know for a fact that they are not a racist, and how dare you claim to know what's inside their soul just because they made one little joke about watermelon tap dancing and going back to Africa. And then you try and explain that we don't need to see inside their soul to know that they shouldn't have said all that about the watermelon, and you try to focus on the facts of the situation, but by then it's too late, because the what they are conversation is a rhetorical Bermuda Triangle where everything drowns in a sea of empty posturing until somebody just blames it all on hip-hop and we forget the whole thing ever happens. Don't let this happen to you. When somebody picks my pocket, I'm not going to be chasing him down so I can figure out whether he feels like he's a thief deep down in his heart. I'm going to be chasing him down so I can get my wallet back. I don't care what he is, but I need to hold him accountable for what he did. And that's how we need to approach these conversations about race. Treat them like they took your wallet and focus on the part that matters, holding each person accountable for the impact of their words and actions. I don't care what you are. I care about what you did.
Code. I love the analogy that he used at the end about the burglar. If someone steals my wallet, I'm not going to run them down and say, you're a burglar. I just want my wallet. I just want my wallet back. Like, just give me my wallet back. In other words, you focus on what they did, but we always want to focus on who they are. We have to say that person's a racist, and we always fall for this trap. Even with Liam Neeson, remember? After this come out, all the talk was, is Liam Neeson a racist? Is he a racist? Now, for those who are not familiar with the story, just listen, through his own words, what happened.
I remembered an incident nearly 40 years ago where a very dear friend of mine was brutally raped. And I was out of the country, and when I came back, she told me about this. And she handled the situation herself and her rapist incredibly bravely, I have to say that. But I had never felt this feeling before, which was a primal urge to lash out. I asked her, did you know the person? It was a man. No. His race? She said he was a black man. I thought, okay. And after that, there were some nights I went out deliberately into black areas in this city looking to be set upon so that I could unleash physical violence. And I did it for, I'd say maybe 4 or 5 times, until I caught myself on. And it really shocked me, this primal urge I had.
Says it again.
It shocked me.
Primal urge.
I did seek help. I went to a priest at my confession. I was reared Catholic. And 2 very, very good friends that I talked to. And believe it or not, power walking. Yeah, 2 hours every day. To get rid of this. And I'm not racist. This was nearly 40 years ago, but because I was brought up in, maybe I'm rabbiting on, Rob, so forgive me. I was brought up in the north of Ireland and brought up in the Troubles, the 60s, 70s, and early 80s.
Okay, so again he says he's not a racist, but let's reiterate what he said. Primal urge. So I put, because Neely Fuller talks about they use these magical words. So primal urge, what does he mean by primal urge? That's instinct, yeah? These magical words sometimes are not for us, they're for other white supremacists. It's like a code, yeah? It's like a dog whistle, yeah? So when he says primal urge, he didn't just say it once, say it twice or 3 times. It's primal urge, because every white supremacist has that primal urge. So he's like hint, hint, wink, wink. The primal urge. The primal urge to do what? Kill black people. Kill black people. Because again, when this happens, we then go onto, you know, emotional. Oh, Liam Neeson's a racist. Oh my gosh, I used to love his films. I can't believe he's a racist. That's off code. To stay on code, what do you need to do? Stay in the question lane. So you're saying, because again, he said that his friend got raped, yeah? And then he started to ask his friend questions. What's the first question he asked his friend? What race? Who's gonna ask their friend what race? Like, if your friend just had a fight and your friend just got beat up. What race? What race? Tell me what race. Like, we don't stay in the question lane. We don't even understand how stupid his story is. So the first thing that he asked his friend was what race. His friend said black. So then he thought, okay, let me go and kill black people then, yeah? Again, where's the logic? Okay, now, at the end he talks about where he's from. Did you hear that part? He's from Belfast or Ireland or something. And he said the 60s, 70s and 80s. How many black people live in Belfast, Ireland or these places in the 60s, 70s and 80s? Remember, he said this story was from how long ago? 40 years ago. So, what black people are raising your friend in that area? To the point where there's a black area, because remember he said he went to a black area and just waited for a black person to attack him. Name me a black area in that area 4 years ago. 40 years ago.
The soldiers, the black soldiers. So they weren't in a black area.
They weren't in a black area. That's what he said. Remember, go by his words. He said he went to a black area and he was waiting for a black person to attack him. Ain't no black areas. What are you talking about? But you don't call them a liar and you don't call them a racist.
I can't call it that. Why? Because that's why we need a counter-racist code.
That's why we need a code.
That I'm saying, I can't call any white person a white supremacist unless that white person says that he or she is a white supremacist. Now, where is the logic in me saying that? The logic is, if I say it, then I should be willing, ready, and able to prove it. And there's absolutely no one that I can prove that by. Anybody who has color in his or her skin, you call a white person a racist if you don't believe what I'm saying. And see if you're not going to have difficulty proving that. You can call anybody anything, but you call a white person a racist in the system of white supremacy. See, that goes to show the power of the system of white supremacy. And that power will be demonstrated. Because here's what. You can't really prove it unless you get another white person to help you. If you don't believe it, try it. Because a black person's word means nothing when it comes to saying that a white person is a racist. unless you can get at least one white person to step forward and say, I'll back up this black person in saying that that white person is a racist. I'll say that that white person is a racist because I'm white and I know what I'm talking about, and so I'll make that judgment. So I am agreeing with this black person that that particular white person on this planet is a racist. Now that black person got something going for him. Otherwise, that black person is in danger of having no help at all, because no other black person can stand up and say, well, I agree. I agree with this black person that that white person is a racist. And because of the way that the system of white supremacy works, no black person can back up another black person in saying that a white person is a racist and make it stick.
So that's
you
cold.
better find somebody who's white.
That's cold.
Which itself proves the existence of white supremacy.
And they like to use these magical words. So primal urge. Now, again, when we're talking about primal urge, when it comes to code, they like to stay on code and they all follow the same code. However, I'd argue there's two incidences where they're not on code, where you can get them off a code and their primal urge comes out. When can you get someone's primal urge to come out? When they're drunk, when they're angry, football matches. Yeah. So that's when you can get the primal urge to come out. So if the primal urge comes out, whatever you hear or whatever you see is the truth. Because their primal urge is coming out. Yeah. So if you can get them angry and or comfortable, they seem to be very comfortable at football matches. Get them angry and or comfortable, then the primal urge comes out and then you get to hear the truth. Yeah. So angry or comfortable, primal urge, like.
Whoa. What's the matter, Fred? What's the matter, Fred? Fuck 'em all. Wankers. Millwall. Fuck 'em all. Fuck 'em all. Millwall. Fuck 'em all. Fuck 'em all. Millwall. Fuck 'em all. Fuck 'em all. Millwall. Fuck 'em all.
You fucking black cunt!
No.
There goes that primal urge again. You know, that primal urge, like the sis says, at football matches, seems to come out, that primal urge, and then they're off code. So, get them angry and or comfortable, like at a football match. I wonder what they're saying to him. Probably the same thing that child just said. Yeah? And again, when this happened, we go on TV and we're the experts. So here is the actual experts asking who? John Barnes. What do you thought? So listen to what he said.
Much the subject has sadly reared its ugly head once again.
While campaigns like Kick It Out have done much to rid football of racism, the subject has sadly reared its ugly head once again over this weekend. Manchester City and England star Raheem Sterling was allegedly racially abused during his team's clash with Chelsea. That's prompted a police investigation. Yesterday, the player himself had his say on social media.
Yeah, in a message on Instagram, he said, "As you can see by my reaction, I just had to laugh because I don't expect no better." And he went on to claim that some newspaper articles about players help fuel racism and aggressive behaviour.
He referred to a headline about his Manchester City teammate, Tosin Adarabioyo, buying a house, which he said painted the player in a bad light. He pointed to a similar story about a white teammate, Phil Foden, which he says was worded more positively. Well, delighted to say we're joined now by England and Liverpool legend John Barnes, who's faced racist abuse during his career. John, I feel we could debate this for hours with you, but let's start with the Raheem Sterling incident and his subsequent post on social media. Do you think that the media plays a role in stoking racial hatred in this country?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Not just in football, and I think Raheem should have winded it to not just talk about the perception that we have over footballers, just as that article portrays, but also, generally speaking, when we hear about Muslim terrorists and Nigerian conmen and Yardie drug gangs and Muslim grooming and paedophile gangs, whereby there are many more white paedophiles, white drug dealers, than there are of the other group of people, but we don't hear we don't talk about that. Now, what that does, it is not targeting or it's not painting a negative image of drug dealers or a negative image of pedophiles. It's portraying a negative image of Muslims or of Nigerians or of Yardis. And it is a very subliminal, subtle way of indoctrination, because I have an argument with and I've had it for many, many years, as to whether the media influences society or it's a reflection on society. And more often than not, it influences society. Something which you may think is completely unrelated is Brexit, because we have been influenced, not just the people who voted Leave, but the people who voted Remain, based on the rhetoric that we heard, which influenced us one way or the other. So we are definitely influenced by what we actually see. So when Raheem talks about, which is very, very good, because, and we can't just label it to football, because racism is a problem in society, and we can't compartmentalize it to say it's in the police or it's in football, because it absolves the rest of society in terms of looking at itself to then say, how culpable are we in being part of this? And we all are.
Do you think then it's something that's getting worse?
It's not getting worse, but because we didn't hear it, we thought it was getting better.
Right.
Now, in football, what football can do is they can say, if there are any racist chanting, we're going to kick you out to the ground. So for any unconsciously racist football fans, all you have to do is keep your mouth shut. That doesn't mean it's getting any better. But of course, in times of confrontation that you saw with Raheem, people show their true colors. And people say, so you can't tell me those 3 people who actually were racially abusing him, there would have been hundreds who probably would have felt like saying the same thing, but they didn't. So does that then mean it doesn't exist? So until we start to tackle it holistically, looking at how to get rid of racism, and the only way we can do that is to tackle the cause, not the symptom. And that incident is the symptom of it, as is we've seen symptoms from Luis Suarez, John Terry. We've seen so many symptoms. And very much like a disease, you have to tackle the cause of racism, not the symptoms. And all we're doing is tackling the symptoms.
So going back to the time where bananas were thrown on the pitch when you were playing football, do you think that even though football maybe has tidied up its image a little bit, society still has those same sort of issues to wrestle with?
Well, before we are members of any football fraternity, we're members of society, so we're doing it the wrong way around. You can't look at football, because for football, for 90 minutes on a Saturday, or obviously football is played at different times now, you can't just say because for the 90 minutes we don't see it anymore means it doesn't exist in society. It is prevalent in society as you go into the inner cities and see how disenfranchised and how lack of opportunities are there for members of ethnic minorities. So why should football be any different?
We've heard, because of what happened to Raheem, Robbie Earle and Jason Roberts both saying that they feel like they've failed Raheem Sterling. What are your thoughts on that?
First of all, they haven't failed Raheem Sterling because there's nothing they can do to change it. Society has to change. They can't change society. Society has to change. And the only way we can do that is, and I always say this, for every Raheem Sterling, John Barnes, who may talk about how we were racially abused, for every Stormzy who says that singers won't get Grammys, and for every Idris Elba or black actors who say we're not getting Oscars, what about the average black person in the street? And until we change the perception of the average black person in the street, there will always be the opportunities for the so-called superstar black celebrities to get an Oscar and to get a manager's job and to get a... But that won't change. The only way we can change racism is if we change the perception of the average black person in the street, and then you will have many more average black people being given what they deserve.
So in terms of those newspaper headlines and those stories that Raheem Sterling was specifically talking about, you talk about changing society. What can the newspaper industry, and not just the newspaper industry, but the media in general, what sort of things would you like to see in terms of the changing of those narratives? And is that a long-term process, or can that change?
It's a very long-term process. We talk about hundreds of years of indoctrination in ensuring that there are certain groups of people who are more worthy than others. I'll give you an example, and I don't really want to talk about this particular person in a bad light, or it's obviously on a different channel, but this is just the principle. Piers Morgan. And I don't know Piers, and I'm sure he's a very, very nice man, but the character of Piers can only be for a white middle-class man who will be successful on television. If it was a woman with Piers' character, that would not be acceptable. Or if it was a black man, it would not be acceptable. Because people may say he's belligerent, people may say that he's condescending, but he's accepted because he's a white middle class. Now, it's going to take a long time to change perceptions of different groups of people, but we know the group of the group who is completely accepted no matter what happens. We know who that is. And the discrimination affects women, it affects ethnic minorities because it's a perception of that person's capabilities. Now, for a woman to lead, for a black person to think, for a homosexual to fight in a war, these perceptions or misconceptions we've had over hundreds of years. And we can't change it by just all of a sudden coming together and saying, you know what you've learned and what has been instilled in you for hundreds of years? That's wrong because we're all equal. It's not as simple as that.
Can I ask you a question, and I accept this from a white man asking a black man this question. When you get asked questions about something completely different, does that thought which you've articulated so well, does that underlie everything you think? Because you feel that there is a sort of a system which is sort of almost fighting against you
in many respects, I'm not talking about me personally.
No, but
no, but this is the point I'm making. Because John Barnes is fine, and so is Beyonce, and so is Obama, and so is black people in the higher echelons of society. But I'm talking about, and I understand what black people go through. So when people talk about, oh, isn't that terrible what happened to Raheem Sterling? I cannot believe that this is happening this day and age. You speak to black people in the cities and they say this is what we go through every day. It's not a surprise to us. So when people are talking about, we thought this already gone away, because it doesn't affect you. So very much when, even from a black perspective, we're talking about discrimination. We're talking about it from a black perspective. But women go through discrimination. They're talking about it from a female perspective. LGBT, homosexuals, it's all discrimination based on the misconception we have of those particular groups. And what I'm talking about is looking at it holistically rather than just saying, oh, it's a problem in football, it's a problem for women in business, it's a problem for homosexuals in the army. It is a problem of changing perceptions, and those perceptions are fueled by the media, as Raheem says. But don't just limit it to the way the perception we have over young black footballers, the perception we have over different groups generally.
Fascinating to talk to you this morning. Fascinating to talk to you this morning.
Allegedly.
Or eloquent.
Or dignified.
So fascinating. Again, it's fake confusion. Because what is he really saying? He's saying that racism doesn't just exist in football. It exists everywhere. It exists in all parts of society. What's fascinating about it? That's obvious. That's so fascinating. But again, that's a magical word. Makes you feel good. Makes you feel like an expert.
One
You're
thing-
asking me.
One thing
that they don't know. Like
one thing to say in John Barnes' defence, though, I don't know if he knows about the codes and all that.
No
But
one.
a few months ago, he did say that when it came up again, that the media always wheel him out to actually be the spokesman on it, and he said he's not going to do it anymore.
That's right.
And if you look back over the last few months, you have not seen him.
That's right.
You've not heard him on radio or TV.
He did say that Liam Neeson deserves a medal, though. For being honest. He was honest. He said he wanted to kill a black person. Yeah.
And Neely Fuller's quote suggests that we should be going on those platforms anyway to have these conversations.
No, he's saying anytime you're talking with them, you stay in question mode. So they invite you on, so they ask you the questions. So if you go on them, I don't know how that's going to pan out if you then turn around and start asking them questions. They'll be like, what are you doing? We invited you on to ask you questions. That's how it works.
Yeah, that was a good point, because it really depends on who the person is to be a spokesperson. I don't personally feel that Afua is a spokesperson for me. She's written a book about, let's all say we're black British.
Yeah.
I'm not in line with what she's on, so I don't
Well,
see
this
it
is the reason why I think we all need to follow a code, because this is called the United Independent Compensatory Code. What he means is that we shouldn't be uniting with each other, we need to unite with ourselves first. So we have to have our thought, speech and action has to be united internally about what we're going to do about white supremacy. Internally, before we then unite with someone else. So we shouldn't be looking for a leader. We shouldn't be looking and saying, okay, let's follow Afua, or let's follow John Barnes, or let's follow Akala, let's follow this person. No, you have to be united within yourself first. And that's the reason why, as we were saying earlier, the only way the system continues is if you're confused about yourself and confused about where you're from. So before you unite with anyone, guess what you need to do? Get knowledge of self and knowledge of where you're from. That is it. Before you unite and say, hey, let's march, or let's do this, or let's come together. Before you come together with another individual, look in the mirror and get knowledge of self first and knowledge of where you're from. That is the first step. But we want to take steps forward and say, oh, let's unite and look how many of us there are, and let's come together and let's move to Africa and do all these things. First things first, we have to have knowledge of self, yeah? Because they know us. They know us. We don't know ourselves. They study us. We don't study ourselves. And again, when it comes to what gets them angry, you know, the primal urge and all that sort of stuff, what really brings out the truth in them, nothing in the last year has got the white supremacists more angry than this.
Because she's from